the other Splinter Cells. Talked about the double agents. Now, finally, after a long hiatus, we've finally finished the two newer Splinter Cells. And, yeah, I have some thoughts. Because I guess we'll start with Conviction. I didn't do one on that one, just because, first of all, Conviction was an incredibly short game. That was literally 4 hours. And I think in terms of Splinter Cell, we cannot call that a Splinter Cell game. Not in the slightest. That game was, first of all, incredibly fast-paced. Had pretty much nothing to do with stealth. The story, not that great. I mean, it was okay, but it just went, again, like I said, 4 hours. That went incredibly too fast. They just kept pushing it super quick. It was, hey, here's the mission. Okay, now here's what's happening. Okay, now you're doing something else. Just went. Honestly, I didn't like Double Agent. I don't like Conviction that much more. That game was just not good at all, remotely. Man, that's considering the game itself, but then on top of a lot of the mechanics that they had in there, I mean, clunky, sloppy, didn't play well. I did not have fun at all. I'd say to anybody who might be doing a Conviction playthrough and might be seeing this, but I would say probably just skip over Conviction, honestly. There's nothing important. Overall, it wasn't. I think I only got it for like $5. I want my $5 back. That was awful. But, in terms of Blacklist, I was kind of surprised. Now, I played this game when it came out in 2013, and honestly, I don't remember a lot of it. Playing it again, though, especially having just played all of the older Splinter Cells, right up and through this one, I'm actually pleasantly surprised with myself. I had bad memories from it, thinking, oh, this game was awful, this isn't Splinter Cell. I was pleasantly surprised. I think this game was actually really good. But for some somewhat different reasons. Now, the mechanics kind of carry over from Conviction, but they kind of, you can tell they kind of cleaned them up. There are some things that probably could be a little bit better, even more so, especially when you look at some of the newer Ubisoft titles that have come out over the years since then. It makes me wonder what a new Splinter Cell would look like. Get to that. In terms of Blacklist, though, it felt good. But in like a weird way to where like an old game does feel. It's kind of weird to say this is an old game, but I mean it's almost 10 years. Mechanically, there were some things that could probably be a little better. Like it was unresponsive at times. Some of the gunplay is a little weak. The main thing that gets to me is because Splinter Cell, obviously, you know, stealth. The best stealth games out there. This wasn't really the case. It was kind of going for an in-between of stealth, but also like a traditional third-person shooter almost. I tried both different ways of full-on stealth and the kind of being a little more loud. And honestly, there wasn't much of a difference. One of the big things is Blacklist is you can, you know, earn money and buy full new sets of gear for more stealth or more armor to go more head-on. And then, of course, you got all your guns. Swapping between the two bits of gear pretty much did nothing. More armor, I didn't take any more hits than I would using all my stealth gear. Using a loud gun, for some reason the AI just unresponsive a lot of the times. And they wouldn't, like, turn their head at you. Like, oh, hey, that guy's right there, you know, big gunshot. No, it didn't matter if I was running a suppressor or not. And that's honestly one of my biggest problems when it comes to Blacklist either. I mean, Ubisoft is notorious for not having great AI at all. Blacklist is no different, but it's in a weird kind of way. It depends on what the mission is. If there were certain missions where we had to either go, because there were side missions, then you have your story missions. Story missions, I feel like they played the best, but then there were certain side missions, they were just all over the place and really weird. But it felt like your loadout didn't even matter a lot of the times, and there were so many gadgets that they have, and this is the same with Conviction. You have so many gadgets. There's so many different ways you could play. I think I used maybe 3 gadgets completely, and the rest of them were more or less useless. It was just because I didn't use them at all to begin with, but I never really felt the need to. You can really just go in with the basic equipment that you would need, and no problem. The one thing I like about Blacklist, if for some reason you've maybe been kind of hesitant to play it, or haven't for whatever reason, there's one thing I really want to see come back and be expanded upon in the newer Splinter Cell, if we ever get one, and that is the freedom to go about the mission itself. Whenever you're thrown into a mission, you're actually given, like, of course, there's a more direct path either way, but when you go to the next area, you have full freedom to navigate around and figure out what exactly you want to do. I mean, there have been multiple missions where you can either sneak under things, sneak around, go straight through, and of course, you can go loud or quiet. Honestly, I would recommend go quiet, but, I mean, there was one mission where there's just this massive courtyard. You can sneak around, or you could do what I did and just sit up top with the sniper rifle and took out everyone out, and you were just home free to go to the next objective. The freedom of missions are kind of cool, and I feel like that's one thing that a lot of newer games have kind of pathed onto, and one thing I would like to see more. It felt really nice and really good, especially when you compare it to the old Splinter Cell games, which were a lot more linear. But being able to do whatever you want is awesome. Now, there is one massive disappointment that I've had with this game, though, being that it is stealth. It is very, very bright. There are lights everywhere. I never needed to use my night vision goggles. And it's kind of devolved in terms of the, how do I put it? How enemies can see you. Because in the older games, you had a little bar that kind of elevated. And then in Conviction, you had 3 different levels of seen, kind of seen, hidden. This one is you're either hidden or not. But with how bright everything is, it got kind of a weird discrepancy, because, I mean, all the Splinter Cell games in the past have been dark. Except for Double Agent and Conviction. Double Agent. This one, if they were bright all the time, didn't matter. It could be pitch black, it's still going to be bright, because there's either lights everywhere, or for some reason, I mean, this game takes place over, like, the course of a month or so, and there's always a full moon. Always. It doesn't matter. It'll be nighttime, and there's just this full room that's glowing like the sun. Now, I don't know if it's supposed to be sort of a challenge, and if it's not that, then it's literally bright daylight. That was one thing that just bothered me, is how much freaking light there was. It didn't feel like a stealth game. Because it didn't feel like a stealth game, the one other thing that kind of bothered me is you never got rewarded, or really even punished, for being stealthy or not stealthy, which is one thing that we really liked in the older game. So, I think overall, Blacklist is a good game, but when you take the mechanics and see how they've degraded over time from the older Splinter Cell games coming down to the newer one, it is severely disappointing to see just how much they've lost in terms of detail. Like, in the older games, you feel like a super spy. You feel like you're rewarded for your stealth efforts, and if you get seen or spotted, that's it. But in Blacklist, it's kind of like, it doesn't work. It doesn't fit. You could just run around with a gun and shoot everyone. It doesn't matter. And it's really disappointing because the game itself is actually pretty good. I think if they took this and made it a proper Splinter Cell game, it would have been the perfect Splinter Cell game. Like, that is probably an unpopular opinion, but I think it would have. Just beautiful. But those are kind of my thoughts on Conviction and Blacklist. Honestly, skip Conviction. Definitely give Blacklist a go if you've always been skeptical. Because I think the game was really good. Definitely worth playing. And I'm hoping we get some Splinter Cell in the future that can kind of fix some of the things and really give us a game that we want.